Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another RadioWis episode. It's episode 3 of the RadioWis show. I'm your host, Rando. If it's your first time here, it's basically just a podcast of sorts, just a quick summary of the past 30 days. And this episode would be for the month of April. How do I say this? It should be for the month of April, but unfortunately we're already we're exactly 15 days into the month of October. No, wait a minute. What the hell am I talking about? May. It's May. I'm sorry, May. Yeah, welcome back. This is actually the second recording of this episode. I made an earlier recording. I think it was 3 days ago on the 12th, but I decided not to use that recording because upon re-listening to it, a few things. The first was that I forgot to mention a few points that I wanted to make, and then the second one was the story that I wanted to share in the podcast. It took too long to get the point across. If I'm not wrong, the entire recording was about 45 minutes, but about half an hour, maybe 35 minutes was spent specifically on that one story, the story of which I will retell in this episode, hopefully to a better degree, one that isn't so long-winded as the previous recording. Yeah, but first of all, my apologies for the episode coming out so late for this month. Once again, this is supposed to be the summary for the month of April, but we are in midway through May. And the reason for that is not to say it as an excuse, but it's been a little difficult to make this episode in particular. Not because of the topics and subjects that we'll be talking about, but more so just the circumstances that has affected. How do I say this? I think mentally I'm just not in the right place mentally these past few weeks, especially beginning the last week of April when this episode should have been recorded. Maybe I should have recorded it then, but what happened was the HoloLive fan animation. Have you guys seen that? It should be the video uploaded just before this one. It's an 8-second fan animation video. Rotoscoping, a big regret to rotoscope, but absolutely worth it. Don't regret making it, but the regret is choosing to rotoscope it. If you're not familiar with the term rotoscoping, it's basically using an actual live action video and tracing the movements in animation. Tracing the movement to make an animation. So it was just a little light-hearted parody fan animation of 2 characters from HoloLive, which I am a big fan of. That is Vesper Noir, and the other one whom I always thought his interactions with was really entertaining to watch. The other individual being Oro Crony. Feel free to search them up. They definitely deserve the attention and watch. Yeah, but that animation took 2.5 months to produce. 2.5 months? When was the last? Okay, so I started working on that animation immediately after the latest RadioWis shorts was uploaded, which was I believe it was Caught. Was it Caught? I think it was. No. Wanna Play, the one where I'm not going to spoil the punchline, but yeah, Wanna Play. I think that was uploaded in January 19th, and I remember it was during that week that the episode was uploaded was when I started this fan animation. So I've been working on that animation since January, mid-January, maybe late January, and it was only uploaded in, was it 24th April or something like that? Yeah, just about 3 months. And within those 3 months, there was February where I worked on the RadioWis assets for an entire month, unfortunately. So, long story short, goddamn, I hope I'm not being long-winded again, but long story short, it took 2.5 months to complete that animation, which was a lot longer than I expected it to take, which is why I regret doing rotoscoping. I'm going to stay away from rotoscoping animation for a while. It's a dangerous category for a solo animator, goddamn. And what happened was in the month of April, I pushed everything aside to focus on finishing the animation because it was supposed to be released at the end of March. And it was released in late April instead. So I was already kind of bummed out that we missed the deadline by about 3 weeks, essentially. But it was at the end of March when the animation was like almost, I think it was halfway done by then. And it was proving to take a lot longer than it would have. I decided to, I told everybody on the supporters and fans of RadioWis on Fanbox and RadioWis.com. I did mention that I would be pushing aside, including the production of the MMO series, just to focus and finish the animation as quickly as possible, thinking I would finish it by early April. And we all know how that turned out. So the conclusion was, because I pushed everything aside in the month of April to focus on the animation, the last week of April, I wanted to focus completely on the MMO series to make up for not even touching it for the first 3 weeks of April. So hence, but I think I kind of overworked myself a little bit on that. And it was just looking at the schedule again, and then realizing how much has been pushed aside. I think it was just overwhelming to see everything on the list. You know, the list of things that need to be done in April. The list of things that were not done in April was probably a little overwhelming, which was why I did not make the time to record this episode. Jesus, that was an 8-minute point. I hope it wasn't too long. But I'm sorry, I'm really paranoid about being long-winded because the previous episode was just half an hour to make a simple point. But, you know, we'll get to it. But moving on. Let's not dwell too much on this. Okay. So, episode came late because late April, not in the best mental position to make the episode. Probably just mismanagement. And the previous 2 weeks were similar, yet it was that, compensating for the MMO series, and also some personal commitments, one of which is the fire department calling me back for the month of May. So I have had to make preparations for that as well. For those of you who are not familiar with what I'm talking about, every year here in my country of Singapore, those of us males who have finished national service or serving the country for 2 years are called back every year for a period of around 2 to 3 weeks to reserve the country. It's kind of like think of it as like a refresher course to make sure that we're still like up to date and fresh with the knowledge of serving the country. We call it a reservist cycle, and we are required to complete around 10 cycles. We do 1 cycle a year, and so it's a total of about 10 years. And so this May, which actually is this May, I'm called back for my annual reservist cycle. And what happens is I'm just back on duty as a fireman, I guess. And so that's another headache, because now I got to push things. I got to reschedule myself to fit in 3 weeks of firefighter duty. God damn it. But I know it's serving the country. It's just saving people, putting out fires. It's a fun thing to do. It's a noble thing to do. I'm not complaining about it. I'm just saying the schedule is a little bit tighter now. You know what I'm saying? Which probably means production of the MMO series is going to be a little slower, and it's already. If we hit October this year, and the next chapter has not released, it would have been 2 years since the last release. It's already been 1.5 years. If we reach October this year, it would have been 2 years since the previous chapter release. What is happening? What is happening? 2 years. What is happening? Okay. No. Supporters will know what's happening. Okay, it's just really slow. And, it does. I try to not let it bite me. Every time I look at the progress and I see that, okay, so we've only done this much this week. Let's try to do more next week. God damn it. I'm not angry. I'm not upset. I'm just trying. That's all I am. That's all I've ever done for the MMO series. I'm just trying. It's taking a lot longer than usual. I know some people in the comments have told me before that, I am a one-man show. It is. I am doing it on like the hardest difficulty, that is being a one-man production team, and then, making more than just the MMO series. I'm working on like animations as well. And before anyone says that, well, Rando, you shouldn't be doing the RadioWis show then. Well, it's an opportunity for me to complain. You know what I'm saying? Let my complaints be heard. It's like a stress relief. This RadioWis show, or at least I find it such that it feels like a stress relief. Just to talk about what's on my mind, just to lay everything out there. These are unscripted, so it feels really. I feel like it's helpful because it's natural, I guess. I'm speaking the words as they come, with some care and caution, but the words you hear are unscripted, which I think is healthy for the mind. What was the point I'm trying to make here? Why the episodes? Why this episode is a little late, unfortunately. Hopefully that's not too convoluted a point. Okay, so welcome back, everybody. RadioWis Show, episode 3. Okay, let's first make the points that I forgot to make in the previous recording, and the first point would be to thank everybody for the successful shirt campaign. The Pinku Paparu re-released shirts Thank you for getting one if you got one. Thank you for your support and for your interest in the merchandise. I do hope that the T-shirts live up to your expectations. I hope the quality is consistently good to everybody. And I thank Represent.com for for allowing me to host that, for allowing me to use their platform to host this campaign. It's over now. If you didn't get one, I'm sorry you didn't, but don't worry. I do plan to re-release the shirts probably annually, every 2 years. So we're probably not going to see a re-release of the shirts until maybe 2025, I guess. And the reason for that is because I do have other shirt designs in mind, and for other seasons. Pinku Paparu was for the season of spring, and I do have other seasons in mind. It's just I need the time to produce the animations. But in the meantime, thank you for purchasing one if you did, and if you did not, then if you liked the Pinku Paparu video, I thank you for that as well. Thank you for just liking the video. And if you did not watch the Pinku Paparu video, go watch it now. Go watch it now. It's in the YouTube channel. Go find it, Fuck you doing. Okay, that was mean. I'm sorry. Okay. That's the first thing that I forgot to mention. Okay, here's the second thing. It says here, explain the HoloLive animation. Okay, I already explained it subconsciously, I think, previously. Let me think about it. What did I say? 2.5 months rotoscope. It took 2.5 months because it just had a lot of frames. The problem with rotoscoping is that there are a lot of frames. Yeah, the animation is smooth, or the movements are believable because they're traced. But the downside of it is that in order for the movements are realistic, but to keep it smooth, you draw a fuck ton of frames. And it's made even worse when there's a fuck ton of frames for accessories that you can't trace. What I mean is, the characters that I drew had accessories that were not part of the source video. Hence, I had to animate them from scratch rather than trace the movements. For example, Oro Crony, which is the blue-haired, the blue-haired female character, had long hair. The source video of the Zoolander meme, the character that Ben Stiller played, what was his name? Zoolander, I can't believe I forgot. Zoolander does not have long hair. He had short hair in the original video. So I had to animate the long hair from scratch, and I had to draw a fuck ton of frames for it. So, stuff like that, like things like that. And then you got like the headbands, and you got like badges, you got cloaks, you got ribbons, you got all these different accessories that you got to draw a massive amount of frames for. And so it adds up. The amount of work adds up. And it takes forever to finish. Oh my God. But, yeah, worth it. Not complaining about the animation, not complaining about the decision to animate. Just maybe rotoscoping is not something one should be doing too often. Like shitting standing up, you know what I'm saying? You can do it, just perhaps it's not the best that you do it too often. Okay, hopefully that explains the HoloLive animation, why it took so long to animate it. I do have plans for other animations, but no spoilers. You want to find out? Go that's just too sell-out-ish. Just there's other animations in mind. I'm a terrible marketer. I'm sorry. I don't feel good telling people to pay me money. Although I need it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's a contradictory existence. I'm sorry. Okay, what's the other point that I forgot to mention? Here we go. Car license. Okay, and the voice actor journey. Okay. Here we go. Okay. So, as I've said earlier, I have not pushed aside. I pushed aside everything to focus on finishing the HoloLive animation as quickly as possible, and that included, unfortunately, the car license journey and the voice actor lessons that I was taking before April. If you remember the previous RadioWis episode, I was telling you that I kept failing the driver's license mock tests that you need to pass. That you should pass before you take the evaluation test that you must pass before you can take the actual written test. And I think I took the test again. I think it was like 5 days ago, maybe 6 days ago, a week ago, maybe. I've been doing better. The passing mark is 45. I've been getting 45, maybe 44. Barely failing. It's a lot better than getting 40 previously, thanks to the guy who was doing the hand signals that were really confusing. But I'm going back into it. Hopefully I'll be able to do more in the month of May. I know there's only 2 weeks left, but, a lot can be done, I believe. Hopefully. And the voice acting one. Yeah, I kind of, once again, pushed it aside. Not that I gave up on it. I just pushed it aside a little bit to focus on the animation. But I do intend to get back into fully focusing on it. Once again, voice acting is a path that I'm really interested in, and I really want to see where it could go. Now, I understand that I don't have the best of knowledge and experience in it, but it's interesting. I might regret it in the future, but for now, the interest and motivation is there. So that will be interesting. Hopefully, I'll have more to talk about in the next RadioWis show for the month of May. When it comes to the car license journey and the voice actor journey. Who knows? Yeah, and hopefully I can talk about hopefully I'll have stories about the firefighter duties that I'm about to have. Am I doxing myself? I don't think so. I don't have that many fans locally. Have I mentioned that before? Maybe not on the RadioWis show. I don't have local fans. Well, okay, no. That's too mean. That's an inaccurate statement. A long time ago, on Patreon, when I was still using Patreon before I left, I remember running a poll asking fans, or rather asking supporters where they were from, and the poll results were 50% of them, 50% of you came from America, the Northern America, and I think it was like 30 to 35% of you were from Europe. And then it was like a lot. The remaining 15%? It's like broken down into like many parts, which were made up by South America, Saudi Arabia. I think there was like a couple in Africa, but the least amount of percentage, I think it was 3%, 5% came from Asia, 2% came from Southeast Asia. Which means that at the time, less than 2% of the entire RadioWis fan base was local. you know. So it's really funny. You know, it might have changed. This was like maybe 6 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. So it might have changed, you know. And then going to Animangaki, it was nice to see the Animangaki anime convention back last year, August last year. It was nice to see the local friends from Malaysia. It was a wonderful experience. But I just can't help but remember that. Oh, like less than 2% made up the whole of Southeast Asia. That's a lot. That's the whole region. This is just not my own country in Singapore. That's Malaysia, Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, Cambodia. You know, like the Philippines. It's the entire Southeast Asian region made up 2%, which definitely means that less than 2% were definitely local. So that was really funny to me, and it's still really funny to me. And in fact, I take solace in it, knowing that I can walk on the streets without being recognized. Hey. You know, it's funny. It really is. The point I'm saying that is because I was afraid that talking about me having to attend firefighting duties for the month of May would dox me, but I guess not. There's like a ton of fire stations in the country as well. So, good luck finding me. God damn. Anyway, that's a story for the next episode. All right. Anyway, that was a 27-minute distraction. Well, not really. We haven't gotten to the main story that I wanted to talk about today. And I wrote these points on a piece of paper, if you guys can hear that. It's a little Post-it note with like bullet points, just to make sure that I remember the points that I wanted to mention, including the messages that the stories, the messages, and the points that I want to make, basically. And let's talk about today's story that I wanted to share, and to protect the identities of the people who are a part of this story. I'm going to use aliases. I hope that's how you pronounce it. Aliases, aliases, fake names, basically. And so I wrote down the names here. Isaac and what's this? Sherman. Yeah, Sherman, not Sherwin. Hold on, I can see my W and M's. Sherman. Yeah, not Sherwin. Okay, Sherman. Now, if you're actually called Isaac or Sherman, know that I'm not talking about you. This is just an example, and I do apologize if you feel called out. Okay, anyway. All right, so the story goes. How do I say? Okay, the title of the story is called Apples to Oranges. And so what happened was, me, Isaac, and Sherman. Oh, no, that's not the right grammar. Sherman, Isaac, and I were having dinner. I think it was early April when this happened. And we were just, having a casual conversation, just, a little dinner bantering, talking about stuff. And then what happened was Isaac was sharing with us like his side of the story, maybe his like the points that he wanted to make. He was talking basically. And then Sherman, I wouldn't say intentionally, but Sherman was just Sherman has the tendency to get a little a little excited to have his input as well while the story is being told. Now, it's not something that he does it intentionally. It's just a tendency to butt in, not interrupt, but I mean, it looks like he's interrupting, but it's basically just to add his point. But there's no ill intention behind it. It's just genuine, like sincerely somebody wanting to share or add on to the story. But just unfortunately, the tendency is to not be able to stop himself from making that input while the story is being told. So what happened was Isaac was telling his story, and Sherman gave his input while Isaac was speaking. And what happened was Isaac got a little visibly irritated by it, understandably. But then he said, it's like, I'm paraphrasing here, but he went, damn it, Sherman. He didn't say damn it. Is making Isaac sound more mean. He just went, Sherman, stop it, Sherman. You're just like Robert right now. You're behaving exactly like Robert. Ugh, you got to stop that. It's just like Robert. And I was taken aback because first of all, I'm not one who's a fan of comparing two different people together. But it was also because Sherman clearly heard the comment, and to say that he was taken aback would be exaggerating it. Maybe he heard the comment and he started to. You could see it on his face that he was, or rather, I could see it on his face that he started to. He took the comment to heart and he started self-reflecting. But it felt like the statement was a little too vague, too broad. And to give you context, Robert is this, once again, it's a fake name, but Robert is this individual, this mutual individual that the three of us know, who we wouldn't call the best role model of a human being. Like Robert's done some terrible things. And one of them was like Robert intentionally. Robert's a little egotistical, so he tends to cut people off. One of his negative tendencies is to cut people off as they're talking so that he can change the story to make it about himself. Robert also jumps to conclusions and finishes your sentences for you, which, in a social setting is kind of not recommended, to say the least. Anyway, so Isaac compared Sherman and Robert, and Sherman was a little taken aback by it. He kept quiet, and you could see he was thinking to himself. And then, I thought that was, while I understood Isaac's frustration, I felt like the comparison was made a little with a slight hint of animosity, frustration and anger. And I felt like that's not right. So I spoke to Isaac after the dinner privately, and I said that, hey, Isaac, while the comparison in and of itself is not inaccurate, like, you could say that Sherman was behaving like Robert. I think it wasn't. I think it was too vague a comparison to make, because it's too broad. Like, what part of Sherman was like Robert? Robert's a terrible person, and to call Isaac Robert without any form of specification, it would. I suspect it would make him question his entire being, because he probably doesn't know which part specific. He probably has a rough idea, because you did kind of make it clear, and not make it clear, but you did kind of imply that it was his tendency to cut you off while talking. That was what you were saying that was similar to Robert, but I think you should make it very clear what it is you're comparing Sherman to, and so we had a little discussion regarding that, and I told him that maybe it's for the better that you don't compare Sherman with someone we know is a terrible person, because it's too shallow a comparison. It's like Robert and Sherman are two completely different people with two. They are worlds apart. But yes, all of us overlap in some form, some way or another. But to compare two people together is kind of a little, in my opinion, irresponsible, because we are so different in our experiences and being. And so the point that I was trying to make to Isaac was that, or at least the point that we were discussing, was that if I, for one, am not a fan of comparing two people together, but and to me, I would avoid that at all costs, because I believe the only person that you should compare anyone to should be the person that they could be. You should only compare somebody to the best version of themselves that they could be. Or at least someone, the better version of themselves, basically, If not the best version of themselves, then at least a better version of themselves. Like, you should not compare someone to somebody else. If you're going to compare anybody, it's him or her to the version of themselves that is the best that they could be. Now, and the reason why I said that is because it's not really constructive to compare two different people together, because the person that you're talking to might feel like there's nothing he or she can do. No, that's not the right way. What was it that I said? This was also one of the reasons why the previous episode took so long, is because it's kind of it's not an easy topic, but there were conclusions that I'd like to share in the episode. It was just getting to the conclusions it took too long. Half an hour, goddammit. Half an hour. It's only been 10 minutes so far, and I think we're making good progress. But anyway, getting back to the points. Okay, basically, The point that I was trying to make to Isaac, you shouldn't compare two people together because that's not really the best way to constructively criticize somebody. I feel that if the only person you should compare somebody to is the best version of themselves or the people that they could be, because then they feel like they have some level of control of what they can improve, you know? And then, however, there are situations where a comparison must be made because perhaps the behaviors are just too strikingly familiar. You know, they're too, sorry, not familiar, but the behaviors are just too similar, too identical. And so if you have to make that comparison to another person in order to point out a negative aspect of their behavior, then I believe you should specify, explain, and then advise the person of that comparison. And what I mean is, if you are gonna tell Sherman that he is like Robert, specify what part of Sherman's behavior is identical to Sherman's behavior. And then explain how that is unappealing, or at the very least, not a behavior that should be practiced. And then finally, advise them on how they could be better and how they could not end up behaving identically like Robert. You know what I'm saying? Am I making sense? You know, don't just say, oh, Sherman, you're just like Robert. Okay. How? Why? Which part of me? You know, to say that I am exactly like Sherman, no, I'm exactly like Robert is a really big and broad accusation or claim. You know, like Robert's done some terrible things. Are you saying that I have done those terrible things because you have observed one aspect from the both of us that are similar? You know, am I making my points clear? Am I being confusing? I hope not. Anyway, so that was the point. You know, so and that's the conclusion that I had with Isaac was that, you know, I understand that you just wanted to tell Sherman that cutting you off while you speak was irritating you. Perhaps making the comparison to Robert was too quick-tongued of you. You know, a little careless of you to say, especially since it was not specified and it seemed like you were saying it to get back at Sherman rather than to teach Sherman what not to be. And so I thought, and so, you know, talking to Isaac, we came to a middle ground conclusion that, maybe he was a little too careless with his tongue in that moment. And, sorry. And, you know, and then I told him to speak to Sherman and, you know, maybe make yourself clear so that there's no misunderstanding between the both of you when you made that comparison. Because once again, Robert, there's mutual contact that the three of us know, is a terrible person. You know, he has his reasons, hopefully, to be that terrible of a person. He's probably a victim of his circumstances, but, you know, to compare Sherman to somebody like that is when Sherman is nothing like that. In fact, Sherman has been a victim of Robert's evil deeds. Let's just put it that way. You know, it's kind of like it feels like a statement that would sting Sherman to be told that he's behaving exactly like a person who has wronged him in his life. Yeah, so basically, I was hoping to encourage Isaac to be more responsible with his words and tongue while trying to teach myself why we shouldn't do that, why we shouldn't compare two different people together. And you know, so I started thinking about it and how it might translate to people's how it might translate to how do I say this? I don't want to be irresponsible with my words here. As you can tell by the many pauses. I'm sorry that I speak like this. Basically, I just wanted to translate the point. I wanted to make the points as clear as possible so that you who are listening and, you know, to myself in the future who happens to rewatch these RadioWis episodes, you know, don't do that. Don't you know, compare people to who they could be, and that includes yourself. You know, don't compare yourself to other people because that's not productive. You don't know what other people are like. You don't know what led them to be who they are. Would you really make the decisions they made if you were put in their position? Would you really not make a worse decision? You don't know that. The only thing you know is what you would do. And so what you can do is imagine the best version of yourself, because only you know what that's like. And then you could probably start thinking about how you can work towards that person, towards being that person. You can break down your processes because you know how far you can go. And so it would be easier for you to imagine what are the limits you need to reach or break to be a better person. Yeah. And I guess that's the point. And we did it in 20 minutes. Yeah, so 10 minutes faster than the previous episode. Oh yeah, baby. Much better, much better. Could you Okay. Let's not get sidetracked. Okay. So to summarize the whole thing, all right, just to summarize the whole story. I personally feel that you should never compare two different people together because it's not constructive. Neither should you compare yourself to other people because, once again, it's not constructive. It's too irresponsible to do that. And, however, should you need to compare two people together, should you be put in that position that you need to point out a strikingly similar behavior between two different people. It should be done with the intention to teach the person you care about it should be done with specificity, clarification. You should explain how this identical behavior is unappealing, and you should advise them on how they can be better and how they can prevent themselves from ending up being like the person you're comparing them to. Although, once again, I honestly believe that if you're going to compare anybody, it should be to who they could be, including yourself. And that's the summary of the story that I wanted to share. And then there's one extra point here, which I'm contemplating making. Okay, so it says you never do it to kids, which means, in reference to what we just talked about, and that, never compare kids to other kids. The reason why I wrote this, I was thinking about this before I started recording. The reason why I wrote this was because the story and this point that I just shared with everybody, it reminded me of a few people who I knew back in secondary school, and in my tertiary education, I knew people who. What I mean by tertiary education is when I was 17 to 20, I knew people who were compared to by others, especially by their parents, and they were compared to other relatives in the family, and the look of, like, you could see that they felt like they were insufficient. They felt like they were stuck because they don't know what it is that they could do to be better, because they're being compared to somebody who is much better than them. And that's out of their control. Like, how am I supposed to be better than Bob? He's got bigger legs. He's got a wider stride. He's got a bigger brain. How am I supposed to be that? How am I supposed to be better than him? But the real question is, do you need to be better than Bob? Or do you just need to be better than who you were yesterday? But when you're young and you're impressionable, you don't know that. You don't know how. You don't know how to compare yourself to the better version of yourself, especially when you're told that you got to be better than Bob. Man, fuck you, Bob. You get my point? You get what I'm trying to say? Do you get what my thought process is? It's just a thought that came to me as I was writing these points. As after this after this story happened back in early April, it was just something I was thinking about. It was like, if you ever have kids, or if you do have kids, and if I ever have kids in the future, the last thing you want to do is to compare them with somebody that they have no control over. If anything, you just encourage envy, I believe, jealousy, inferiority. They don't feel like they got the control to improve, because what the hell do we know about the person that we're comparing them to? I hope I'm not getting too philosophical here. This is almost a 1-hour episode. The previous episode was 45 minutes. Jesus, my God. Okay, so hopefully the points were more organized in this one. The reason why I scrapped the previous episode was because when I was telling this story about Isaac, Sherman, and Robert and me, well, first of all, it took 35 minutes to get the story out before I could make the conclusion. Not only that, as I was listening to myself telling the story, it kept jumping back and forth. And it after a while, it just got really confusing because it was so convoluted. It was so not streamlined. And so I hope that's not the case in this RadioWis episode. Hopefully it's a lot more organized in this one. And that's the point. I hope you enjoyed. Not you enjoyed, but I hope you managed to understand what it was that I was trying to share with you. Now, obviously, I don't think that I'm right, but I'm not 100% right. I do make my mistakes in my conclusions, in my thought process. But it's just a conclusion that I wished to share with everybody. And hopefully one that I can better improve myself. A conclusion that I can improve by sharing it with you guys, the listeners, and my future self. Who knows? Maybe 5 years or 10 years down the road, I'll rewatch this episode and I'll think to myself, "What a fucking idiot!" No, maybe who knows? Maybe I might need to hear it again. Who knows? I don't. And I'm sorry if it sounds really mellow and upsetting. I don't mean for it to be a sad episode. It's just it's something that I felt like sharing. If anyone's curious where I'm no philosopher. I'm not somebody who's trying to, what's the word for it? I'm not somebody who's trying to persuade you to think a certain way. I'm just trying to share my thoughts, and just, as I speak, I try to reflect on my own points and see if, there are ways that I can think better. These conclusions are not original. If you think that I am coming up with these conclusions on my own, it's not. I've gotten a lot of philosophical help and self-help by following and reading Professor Jordan Peterson's advice and lessons. I used to be a terrible, terrible person. Maybe it's something we can talk about in the next RadioWis show. I used to make a lot of mistakes. And, I'm not clean from making mistakes today as well. Although, the difference is that I want to try. And I want, at the very least, my family to benefit from the best version of myself. And that means that requires a lot of self-reflection. Which is one of the reasons why I started the RadioWis show. I'm glad I started the RadioWis episodes. What do you think? Is it too long-winded? Is it too confusing? Hopefully not, but, be honest with me. The whole point of the RadioWis show is to be honest and to be truthful and sincere, I guess. All right. Let's call it an episode before I say something that I don't mean. All right, let's call it a RadioWis show episode. Thank you so much for joining me in today's RadioWis show. I hope you had a good time listening to me. I hope that it was able to keep you company in whatever you were doing, while you were doing whatever you were doing. And I do hope to see you again in the next RadioWis episode, which should be at the end of May and not mid-June. Hopefully. I'll try to be more punctual. Once again, take care. Have a good day. Have a good night, wherever you're from. I do hope you stay safe and sound. And I'll see you again in the next RadioWis episode. Thank you for your support. And, if you haven't watched the HoloLive fan animation, feel free to do so. If not, watch out for the next post or something. All right, take care, everybody. Good night.